Hey there, today we will be covering Iroi and going over Iroi as a character. In this guide we will be going over her character role, her full kit, her awakenings, her team comps, her rotation, her gear, her bond gifts and her cafe ranking. What we'll not be going over in this guide is Mommy's belly.
Everyone, let's all crawl back into Mommy's belly.
Thank you for that, Iroi. And we'll not be going over her feet unless... Anyway, let's get into her character role. She is a support buffer for most teams, but if you want to see Sixer, she can be played as a main DPS. We'll not be going over main DPS in this guide as I don't have her C6. But that is her character role. Let's get into her character kit. Let's start off with her basic attacks. She has her 1 to 5 basic attack like everybody else. But she has a little trick where she can cancel her basic attack, just like Lacrimosa. But she also has a really high multiplier on her plunge attack. As you can see here, plunge attack is a viable way of actually main DPSing her. Second up, you can cancel her third attacks. When you see the claw marks here, that is her third attack. You can dodge cancel it to actually start your second attack faster to also do more damage if you're main DPSing her. Then after your ult or skill, you can hold attack to make her shoot on her sheep, and you can swap her off to another character so she can do damage off field. Next up we have her skill, which is her E. Her E is a really good grouping skill and it also provides damage buffs. It is 20% of Iroi's basic attack. You can also hold her E skill to turn all of your characters into sheeps, and they will inherit some attack based on Iroi's total attack as damage. You can also ult after you turn them into sheep, and if you hold one of the icons, you can revive that character for a limited amount of time. So you can use that rotations, and then once your imagination goes to 0, which is the green bar above Iroi's HP, when that goes to 0, it will turn back into a sheep. And you'll be back on Iroi. As you can see here, we are getting imagination on the green bar. Then next up we have her ulti. Her ulti just heals targets, but if your imagination bar is full, the green bar we just saw at the bottom of the video, then it will also do a damage over time effect for everybody inside the ult area. So if you want a bit of extra sub DPS damage, it's important to have full imaginations, but you'll often not get full imagination from sub DPSing her without her copies, so this isn't very useful at a 0 for Iroi. Next up we should also have her support skill. Whenever you swap into Iroi, she does damage, she heals, and she also gains a little bit of energy. It's basically the same as most other support skills, with the only change that she actually heals doing it herself. Then we also have her first passive, which is the Blossom Enchantment. Whenever you spawn a Vitabot, after 3 seconds Iroi will spawn a Vitabot herself. As you can see here, we spawned one Vitabot and there spawns the second Vitabot. The one that is a bit more transparent is Iroi's Vitabot. This passive also works with G1, so when you do an Esper cycle and proc 2 Vitabots because of G1 passive, she will then also proc 2 copies. So you can have 4 Vitabots at one time. These also have individual caps, so G1's normal Vitabot will have 6 Vitabot cap, while Iroi's Vitabot copies will also have a 6 cap, which meaning you can have a total of 12 Vitabots on the team, which is a really good passive. Next up we have her second passive, which just provides defense threat to your entire team whenever she casts her skill. It is pretty good for just a bit of extra damage, but it's not a game changer by any means, but you should definitely pick it up if you are playing Iroi regardless. Next up we have Lacrimosa life skill, which is her cafe life skill. She provides 18 traffic at level 1, 18 traffic at level 3, and 27 traffic at level 5. As you can see on the left side, we have the character ranking for the cafe, and Lacrimosa is gonna be on the same spot as Edgar, which is the 3rd or 4th spot, depending on how you count it. Shinku/Shikiri is number spot 1, then you have Irelia at spot 2, and then Edgar and Iroi at spot 3. So it'll take a while before Iroi gets replaced in the cafe. So if you do want to min-max cafe, it's definitely worth picking her skill up. For her second life skill, we have grants additional funds whenever you're doing the thrift cap by 1000 and increase the customer satisfaction by 25 in thrift cap gameplay. So if you're doing thrift cap to spend your city stamina, it's worth picking this life skill up, but I would not recommend starting doing thrift cap just for this passive. So all in all, it's not really worth in my eyes. Next up, let's get into Iroi character build. She is an Anemo support, and her skill priorities is gonna be skill, alt, basic, but you can leave all of these at level 1 if you're using her as a support. But I do recommend leveling skill up first if you want a little bit of extra damage, and then you can level up alt afterwards. But honestly, I do not recommend leveling these up at all, considering her attack buff does not increase with skill level, and you cancel her skill anyway, and you never have full imaginations for her alt damage, so therefore it doesn't really help. The only thing it really helps with is a bit of healing, which I don't think is needed currently. So if you don't want to level her skills up and save some resources, that is definitely recommended in my opinion. If you are gonna main DPS her, which we're not really covering in this guide, you would obviously level her basic, skill, and then alt in that order. Then we have her weapons. The Wrong Gate, Youthful Fantasy, and Mind Royal. The Wrong Gate is gonna be the best weapon for Iroi, which is her signature weapon. The next up is Daffodil's weapon, which is Youthful Fantasy, and the third option, if you're using Daffodil weapon somewhere else and can't use it on Iroi, then Mind Royal is a pretty decent pickup. I honestly do not really recommend pulling for her main signature weapon, as the increase is really low. It's only around maybe a 9% increase from Daffodil weapon when we're talking in the team buff perspective. So I do not recommend pulling on it. Currently, with how team comps work, you have one main DPS and then 3 either sub DPSs or support buffers mostly. So currently the entire 9% that she's really buffing is going into one character, but often a main character's signature weapon is often between 15 and 25% of extra damage compared to the free-to-play options, depending on how strong the signature weapon is. So for a lot of teams currently, it will be worth more getting the signature weapon on a main DPS over Iroi's signature weapon. If we have a future where the team is split more in the 40-30-30 range of the character's damage, Iroi weapon would be better, as it would provide somewhere around 9% boost in attack to all of those 3 characters, and since the damage is split around them, it will be actually better than getting a signature for one of those characters, as that one signature will only increase the character's own DPS by 15, but Iroi will increase 3 characters DPS by 9%, which would leave her increasing the overall team's damage more. But since we don't have any team comps where the damage is equal and they're all basically main DPS teams, her weapon is really not worth it right now. So I recommend just sticking with Daffodil weapon. Next up we have her gear set, which is the Speedy Hedgehog we're gonna run for extra attack buffs when we are pressing her ult. And on the right side you can see her Tetris piece setup. For her main stats we'll want cycle or break intensity, and for the substats you will want cycle, break, and then either attack or damage percentage. That is gonna be your substats, but only cycle and break intensity are the important ones to focus on. Everything else is just slightly bit of damage, but it doesn't really do a whole lot. So as long as you get cycle and break, it will be pretty good. Break should scale better with Daffodil weapon the more break you get, but cycle intensity is also really good for a lot of teams where you are using her as an Esper cycle. That is everything for her build section. Let's get into her awakenings. For A5, it increases the attack by 15% of Iroi's base attack for 20 seconds. So when you press her E, it's now 30% attack instead of 15 to match Shakiri's default. Then for her A1, we have restore 3 imagination per second or field, increase imagination gain by 30%, and grants Iroi maximum imagination upon entering the battlefield for the first time. For her A2, it makes her able to do a follow-up attack, so whenever a character uses a skill, Iroi will do a follow-up attack that does 200% of her attack, and restores all team members' HP by 120% of Iroi's attack with a 5-second cooldown. Her A3 gives Iroi 36% extra healing from all Iroi healing. Her A4 increases the regression state sheep's attack percentage value up to 30% now instead, so you can do more damage as main DPS. Her A6 grants 100% HP, 50 cycle energy and 50 ultimate energy to any character you revive during her ult in their regression state. For her support, I do recommend getting her A5, A1, A2 and then A3 as a last resort. And for main DPS, I would recommend A5, then A4 and then A6, and I would probably do A2 afterwards, but the rest of them don't really matter too much. So let's get into her resonance effect. Her first resonance effect at Awakening 3 is 30% defense to the entire team and level up her skills by 1. Her Awakening 6 for getting A6 is 25% increased crit damage for the entire team, and then increase Iroi's damage by 15% and increase Iroi's crit rate by 5% for each character in the regression state, which is 15% crit rate once all characters are in the regression state. So this is the recommended for main DPSing her, as she gets all of these buffs for herself, but it can also be used for support as you do get 25% crit damage. That is everything for her awakenings. Let's get into the team comps. We have 4 team comps here, which is Lacrimosa, Blossom, Shinku and Chaos teams. Let's talk about Lacrimosa team first, which is probably Iroi's best team that she is available in. She increases this team damage more than the rest of the teams, but it's still not by a big margin, so I don't recommend pulling her unless you really like Iroi. This team she does increases by a little bit of damage. Next up we have the Blossom team, where Iroi mainly replaces Hotori. So if you already have Hotori, I do not recommend pulling Iroi, but if you don't have Hotori, Iroi will be a big damage increase for the Blossom team. So I would recommend pulling her if you want to play Blossom and don't have Hotori. Then for the Shinku team, Iroi is not the biggest increase, but she does allow you to play Heather instead of Skier. So if you want to play Heather instead of Skier in the Shinku team, you can pull Iroi for that reason. She does increase this team's damage by a little bit over Nanali, but it's not by a lot. So I don't really recommend pulling her unless, again, you really just like Iroi. Then we have the Chaos team, where we can put in Iroi instead of G1. Once again, Iroi doesn't increase this team's damage by a whole lot, but she is a damage increase nonetheless. So if you want to max your Chaos team, you can pull Iroi for that team as well. That is everything for the team section. So let's get into the rotations. For Iroi Rotation herself, we're gonna use her skill, we're gonna tap it, then use her ult, then you're gonna hold attack after her ult animation ends, and then you're gonna tap basic attack. We will get into showcasing this during the rotation as well. For the first team comp, we are gonna go over the Blossom team comp rotation, and on screen I have the team comp setup. If you want to know how to set up the entire team comp, you can see their gear and everything here and the skill priorities. So let's get into the rotation. First off, we're gonna start on MC, use E and Q. You can also do QE. Then we're gonna go into Iroi, use Iroi E, then Iroi Q. And now you hold attack, then you press it, and then you swap off right after she lands. Then we're gonna use T-U-N EQ, and then we're gonna swap into Nanali and use Nanali EQ, and then we're gonna basic attack on Nanali until our skill and ult is basically out of duration. So you can see here, once our skill is almost out of duration, we're gonna swap into MC, then we're gonna use MCE, then we're gonna swap into Iroi, use Iroi E, then Q, and hold attack now, let go, press hold attack, swap out, and then T-U-N EQ, and then back into Nanali, and that's the entire rotation. You just repeat that over and over again, and that is how you do it. We also have a graphic here if you want to see the rotation in a graphic perspective instead of in game. You can see the Blossom rotation here. It is a pretty simple rotation and the simplest rotation of all of the team comps. Next up, we have the Shinku team comp. I will leave the builds on the screen. If you want to know how to set up every character, you can see them here. If you for some reason haven't watched any of the other character guides, you can use this as an TLDR reference. We are gonna be using Heather instead of Skier on this team. Let's get into the rotation. We're gonna start with 8 stacks on Shinku, use her skill. Then we're gonna wait till we have at least 4 stacks. And then we're gonna auto attack, swap into Iroi, use Iroi E, ult, then hold attack, stop holding, press it, and then swap out into MC, MCEQ, and then we're gonna Heather QE, and then after we Heather QE, we're gonna swap into Shinku, and then we're gonna Shinku ult. Then you're gonna Shinku basic attack 1 or 2 times, and then skill, and then basic attack 1, skill, basic attack 1, skill, basic attack 1, skill, and then basic attack 1, skill, and then you're gonna ult 3 times, and then you're gonna use your final ult, your 4th ult. Then once we're done, we're gonna swap into Iroi for the Blossom proc, and then swap back into Shinku. Then we're gonna stack our passive up to 8. And then we're gonna use a skill again. Then we're gonna stack our passive up to 4. As soon as it's at 4, you can attack. Then we're gonna swap into Iroi, and then we're gonna repeat the entire rotation again. So that is the entire rotation for the Shinku team. If you want to see it in the graphic form, we have the whole rotation here in graphic form. It's quite a long rotation, but this is where you can see it all. Next up, we should have the Lacrimosa team comp. If you want to see how to set up the Lacrimosa team, you can set up the Lacrimosa team like this by using the references on screen. Let's get into the rotation. First, we're gonna start on Lacrimosa. We're gonna use the swap skill. Then we're gonna use Sekiri, Q, and E. Then we're gonna go back on Lacrimosa, use her E skill. Then we're gonna go on Hanel, use her Q, and then her E, swap to Iroi, use Iroi, E, and then Q. And then we're gonna hold attack, tap it once, and then swap into Lacrimosa, and use Lacrimosa ult. Then we're gonna basic attack 4 times on Lacrimosa, dodge cancel, use her skill, dodge cancel, and then use her basic attack 4 times, dodge when necessary, and dodge cancel it. Once our cycle energy is full, we're gonna anomaly skill into Sekiri, and then Sekiri E, then Hanel E, and then Iroi E, Iroi ult, Iroi hold, and attack back into Sekiri, Sekiri ult, then back into Hanel, Hanel ult, and then we're gonna go back into Lacrimosa, and we should be able to have Lacrimosa ult up, and then Lacrimosa ult, and then back to using her 4 attacks, any cancel, use her skill, any cancel, and then attack 4 times, any cancel, attack 4 more times, any cancel. Then once your energy is full, you just repeat the rotation. That is the entire Lacrimosa rotation. We also have a graphic on screen here if you want to see it like that. Next up, we have the Chaos rotation. you can see how to set up each character on the screen here for reference. Let's get into the Chaos Rotation. First off, we're gonna start on Iroi. We're gonna use Iroi's skill, Q, and then hold attack, press it once, then swap into MC. Use MC, and then you can swap into Heather if your Heather is built, otherwise you can skip Heather. If your Heather is built, you're gonna QE on Heather, and then swap out doing the E in on Chaos. Use Chaos E, then Chaos Alt. Then you're gonna stack up your heavy attack on Chaos. Once you have your heavy attack, you're gonna heavy attack the bar at the bottom, and then we're gonna stack up our heavy attack again. And then once our cycle energy is full, we're gonna swap into the main character. Then after you swap into the main character, use E, then swap into Iroi, use EQ, then hold attack, tap it, and swap into Heather. Heather EQ if you have it, and then you're gonna use E on Chaos, and then use his heavy attack, and then you're gonna use his ultimate. Then after your ultimate, you're gonna stack up your heavy attack again, then use your heavy attack, so we get 2 heavy attacks in the rotation now. And then we're gonna stack up our heavy attack again, and then once that's stacked up, you're gonna swap into MC with full cycle energy, and then back into Iroi after that, and then you just repeat that rotation over and over again until the boss is dead. We also have the rotation in the graphic form here, if you prefer seeing it that way. Next up, we are gonna have Iroi gifts for her bond. At the cheapest option, we have the Puka Dream Marshmallow at 100 points, and it costs 660 fonts. It should be 0.16 fonts per point. If you want to speed up your progress a bit for the bond, you have the 200 points option, which is the Sunflower, which costs 4,500, which is 0.04 points per font. If you want to speed run it and don't care how much fonts you are spending, you can either buy the Solitude or the Barometer, which is 400 points and 10k fonts at a 0.04 fonts per bond points, which is actually the same amount of fonts per bonds as the 200 Sunflower, which means the 200 Sunflower really isn't recommended buying. I would recommend just buying Solitude and Barometer or the Puka Dream Marshmallows for her gifts. Let's get into Iroi's pros and cons. Her pros is versatile teams. She can basically fit on any team you want to fit her on, as long as she needs a support. Her rotation is a pretty fast rotation, which is also a plus. She has buffs. She does have a defense threat, and she does have an attack buff. She does not need her signature to be good. Daffodil weapon is just fine, so you don't really need to pull her signature, which makes her a little bit more cost effective. She is an upgrade for the cafe, so if you care about maxing cafe, she is definitely worth to pull. She also is a low resource cost. You can leave all her skills at level 1, and it doesn't really affect the damage of your clear. You can get a little bit of damage by leveling her skill and her ult, but it really is so minor that you're better off not leveling them at all to save resources for other things in the game, which is a big plus in my opinion. Unless you're playing her main DPS, then you obviously need to level it. Then we have her cons. Her buffs are weak. Shikiri has better buffs and Hanel has better buffs, so if you ever were to replace a support or a buffer in a team, let's say Lacrimosa, which is using 3 buffers, she would be the first one to replace, unfortunately, which makes it not so worth pulling. Her rotation can also be quite difficult, with the hold attack tap to make her shoot off field, as well as when you main DPS her, she has a lot of animation cancels and plunge attacks and stuff you can do for maximum damage, which can be quite hard. She also only provides minor team damage in every team she's in. She doesn't increase the damage by a big margin. It's a minor team damage difference. Therefore, it's hard to justify pulling her for how little damage increase she actually gives to any of those teams. And none of those teams really need her damage right now. We also have Juan exist, which means that Juan can do what Iroi can. Besides the healing and the buffing, Juan can also group and do the same, if not more damage than Iroi. Iroi does provide a little bit of buffs and healing, which nobody else does. So if we ever get content you need healing in, Iroi will be a good support. But currently she is not a very good support in my opinion, and it's really hard to justify pulling her. So let's get into the pull recommendations. I honestly do not recommend pulling Iroi unless you really like her. In my opinion, she is the weakest limited character we have gotten released so far. The only upside is that she really has a good versatile team that you can fit her into any team. So if you really just want to maximize your damage, she is fine to pull just to get that little bit of extra damage, but currently in the game there isn't really any use to pull her. If you do want to pull her, I recommend pulling A0. That's a good stopping point, but if you want her to be a better support, I recommend pulling her A1 before pulling her weapon. Then before pulling her A2, I would recommend pulling her weapon and then pulling her A2. And then after that, you can stop at A2 is a really good stopping point if you don't want to stop at A1. And then after A2, I would only really recommend going to A6. I don't recommend A3, 4 or 5. It's either you go to A2 with her weapon or you send it all the way. That is my recommendations for pulling her. That is gonna be everything for the Iroi guide. Hope you enjoy and hope to see you next time.
It's time to go home.